Hi, this is Larry Slagle with another executive session of Massillon Magazine. I'm here today with Bill O'Neill, the Democratic candidate for governor in the May 8th primary. How you doing, Bill?
Good, Larry.
It's good to see you.
Good to see you.
You're a former Supreme Court justice in Ohio, are you not?
I am. I'm out about 3 months now. I left in January to run for governor.
And why do you want to be governor of the great state of Ohio?
There's a couple things going on that I don't think are right that I think I can fix.
And what are those?
Well, start with 5,000 people a year dying from heroin overdoses, and I don't see that the state is doing a darn thing about it. Here we are in Massillon, Ohio, and once upon a time in Ohio, we had a world-class network of mental health hospitals. One of them would have been Massillon State Hospital, and in the 80s, a decision was made just to board them all up.
Yeah.
The theory was, we'll send those people back to the 88 counties they came from, and they'll somehow magically get treated by somebody. The reality is they ended up in jail. That's where a majority of our mentally ill residents reside today. That is precisely where they should not be. We have to reopen a network of regional state hospitals. It's non-negotiable.
And how will that help?
Well, you know, I'm a pediatric emergency room nurse, and the reality is that with these hands, I've saved a life. And bring a heroin overdose kid back to life. Mm-hmm. But the reality is, the doctor gives him a stern lecture, the nurse gives him an admonishment, and we send him home with his parents to die. Oh, because, well, Larry, there's no soft way to say that. We're talking about 5,000 people a year. It's going up 1,000 per year. It's just, we're not getting ahead of it, we're getting behind it. The only thing you can do for an addict is to provide long-term treatment. I'm not talking detox here. Mm-hmm. And the local hospitals can only take in so many free patients a year, or they'll have to close their doors. So we have to open a state mental health network. We can do it. I know how to pay for it without raising taxes.
That was going to be the question I was going to ask, because people want to know how you're going to pay for it.
I think the answer is actually simple. If people just want to address reality, it's time to legalize marijuana in Ohio. About half of your viewers will hate me for saying that, and half will love me. Let me try to convince that half. If you legalize marijuana today, the use of heroin goes down 25%. The deaths go down 25%. And if we use the Colorado and Washington model, we would generate $500 million in sales taxes. And let's be honest here. Marijuana is being sold and used in Massillon today. Mm-hmm. But it's not regulated. It's coming from Colombia. It's being brought in by organized crime. We need to legalize it and tax it.
And the taxes that will be received from that legalization will be sufficient to fund the hospital program that you've discussed?
$500 million, absolutely. I'm advocating building, construction jobs. Construction jobs. I'm talking about building 10 new hospitals. I'm talking about, if we look at what happened in Colorado, 18,000 new jobs. Mm-hmm. 18,000 if we legalize marijuana. And there's another revenue source that I think will enrage your viewers is, are you aware that we have close to 5,000 non-violent marijuana offenders in jail right now?
I know it's a high number.
They cost us $100 million a year to keep them in a for-profit prison system. Mm-hmm. And boy, if you don't hear anything else today, hear this. A for-profit prison system is morally reprehensible and totally unacceptable in a free society.
So you're obviously advocating a change in the current prison system.
Absolutely. Well. It's been going on for probably 10 years now. They're selling off state government. They've already sold off the school system to the charters. They've sold off the prison system to the profiteers. What's next? Highway Patrol, maybe? We could have Pinkertons do the police work, I would think. We could do that cheaper than what we're doing. Well, we've got to stop privatizing public jobs.
I was just going to say, I gather from your comments you're not in favor of privatizing the public.
No, I'm not a stranger. I'm not a stranger to Massillon. I used to represent the unions at the hospital. I organized that union out there, and those are good paying. They're good paying state jobs with health care and with retirement and a real career. These privatizations don't do that.
All right, what other problems you see in the state that you feel that you're going to address differently than other candidates?
Well, here's the question that nobody seems to have an answer for, is why don't we have solar panels on top of every government building in Ohio? They pay for themselves in 7 years, they protect the environment, they create good jobs in design, installation, maintenance. It baffles my mind that we haven't grabbed solar as a generator of jobs.
And that's one of your, so you've got 3 programs so far.
Sure.
The solar, the opioid crisis, and bringing back the state hospital system along with, well, that's part 1 and 2.
Right.
And then legalizing marijuana.
Legalizing marijuana, but I can go on because...
Now, is that a decriminalization as opposed to a legalization, or?
I've always, and even as a Supreme Court justice, I'm absolutely confused by the 2 terms. I think they're one and the same.
Okay.
I really do. The other thing I look at that just, makes me want to be governor is, why don't we have a high-speed rail train from Cleveland to Columbus to Cincinnati? They can do it in China and France and California. We can't do it here. Here's what's really amazing about that. 20 years ago, we had a feasibility study that said, that's a good idea. It's a job builder. It's going into the future. Instead of doing that, we built the 3rd lane on Interstate 71 for the same price. But then it gets worse, because when Ted Strickland was the governor, we got $600 million from the federal government to put a high-speed train in Ohio. $600 million.
Where'd that money go?
John Kasich gave it back to the feds. He said he didn't want $600 million in new high-paying jobs in Ohio.
What was the cost of that train system going to be, though?
It was more than $600 million, no question about it. But at some point, we have to invest in the future of Ohio.
All right. So how are you going to pay for it?
Well, that's an easy one. That's a bond. They had that set up under the Celeste administration, I do believe. It goes that far back. You float bonds and rail. The money brought in at the ticket booth on any mass transit is not going to be enough. Government has to invest in government.
Okay. How you been getting your name out, campaigning and going out about the state?
Same way I did it in 2012. I found that ideas sell. Let me have one of those brochures there.
Sure.
When I started out, we just went ahead and said, here's the O'Neill plan, and we published it. And it's everywhere on the internet. As you may recall, you're an attorney, you may recall when I ran for Supreme Court, I said I'm going to run on no money from nobody. And everybody said I was absolutely...
We were skeptical.
That's polite. And I think crazy was the word that came to mind. Mm-hmm. And I ended up beating a incumbent Republican who had $2 million to misspend. And I became the justice, and he went on to other things. Good guy. Mm-hmm. Liked him. You remember him, was Justice Cupp. Yeah. We're friends today.
So, in your campaign, then, are you accepting campaign contributions?
Yes. This is not a judicial race. Okay. I'm raising money.
And how would people get a hold of you if they like what you've presented and they want to either help with your campaign or donate to it?
O'NeillForGovernor.org. The reason it's not .com is because the Republican Party saw me coming 2 years ago. They bought O'NeillForGovernor.com.
Oh, did
the Ohio Republican Party owns that website.
Holy smokes.
I'm waiting to see. We'll have to look it up tonight and see if they're doing anything. And the other thing that'll get your listeners thinking about O'Neill, mm-hmm. I think we ought to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour. And here's why I say that. I talked to a friend of mine who owns 10 restaurants. He says that will be the end of sit-down dining in Ohio. And I said, quite to the contrary. You take an entry-level worker who's making $9 an hour right now, you give them $15 an hour, next Saturday they're going to go buy a Jeep Wrangler built in Toledo. There's just no question, because that money will go into the economy. If there's 2 of them, they've got a net income now, or gross income now of $60,000. They can build a house, they can start a family, they can buy a car.
They can go to the same restaurant to eat.
And you're way ahead of me, because I said, the guy says, well, I'll have to raise the price of my burger from $8 to $9 to cover all this. And I said, the person who's making $8 doesn't care because he can't afford to eat here right now. We've got a whole class of society right now that are not in the American dream. And that's wrong. That's just wrong.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear these. They're pretty progressive thoughts on your part. What kind of support are you getting from either the party or the party structure, if anything?
Fortunately, the first time ever, I'm seeing the Ohio Democratic Party is staying out of it. You know, I accused them a couple months ago of favoring one candidate over another. And since they've let me into the race, they resisted to begin with. And I'm in the race right now. I go to the debates. We're getting just great response, particularly on marijuana. Mm-hmm. And I was asked just the other night about where do I think this race is going? I said, well, right now it's narrowed down to there's 4 what I consider to be very good candidates. I mean, we've got good candidates running for governor. We got a good primary going. I'm thinking it'll take maybe low 30s, 32, 33% to win the Democratic primary, and I've got that. I'm not worried about that. I'm the only one in the last decade that's won statewide. I won in 12, Richard Cordray lost in 10. So I'm the only Democrat to have been elected to the Supreme Court of Ohio in 30 years.
And you have some business background too.
Oh, I've owned restaurants. I've been a civil rights lawyer. I'm a retired lieutenant colonel, United States Army, with the Bronze Star from Vietnam.
What did you serve?
United States Army. Six weeks after graduating from Ohio University, I was on active duty, went off to Vietnam, came back, and then I ultimately was with the Ohio National Guard, which is also here in Massillon. Towards the end, I was their JAG. I had the JAG. Those of you out there from the 107th Armored Cavalry Regiment will remember me. But as I say, I'm a nurse, I'm an Army officer, I'm an Attorney General, I'm a Supreme Court Justice, and I'm advocating the legalization of marijuana. If that's not worth 32% of the vote, I don't know what is.
And you've raised your family in Ohio, lived here all your life?
Tragically, yes. Tragically, 20 years ago, my wife died in a car accident, and I always get them going on the campaign trail, and I say, as a result of that, I've developed some skills that not everybody has. I know how to make 4 school lunches with 5 minutes to spare. Mm-hmm. I can buy a prom dress off the sale rack, and I can make a $100 car look like a boy's dream come true.
Holy cow. So how are you bringing your campaign to the people and the Democratic voters in Ohio?
The old-fashioned way with the new stuff. Sitting across from us is Joe, who took a year off from Youngstown State University to be my call time manager and my driver. We've done 13,000 miles in 2 months. We have a Lincoln hybrid that gets 38 miles to the gallon. We just love it. It's comfortable. So we're going anywhere they'll have us. Mm-hmm. But more importantly, learning from the last race. This is an internet age. If you have something to say, people will hear it.
And your internet site is
O'Neillforgovernor.org, O-R-G.
And at that site, they can see your platform?
Everything.
They can make campaign contributions?
Great videos. We have fun videos on the show.
What kind of fun videos?
Well, on Friday afternoons, we've been just sitting me down in a chair like where we are, and I'll just talk about ideas.
And where do you live now?
Chagrin Falls, Ohio.
All right, so it's still northeastern Ohio.
Right. I used to be in Geauga County for 20 years, and I moved 100 yards north, and now I'm a Cuyahoga County resident. And the other thing I've got going when we're talking about the 33%, everybody knows that education is a giant issue for state government that has been mishandled for 20 years. You know, the Roth case, it's just bad. Well, if you look again at my brochure, and that's online at O'NeillforGovernor.org, my running mate is a former Cleveland public school teacher. That in itself says everything I need to know.
So you believe in a strong public education system?
I do, but more importantly, what's Chantel? Chantel Lewis is her name. Mm-hmm. She's not only a public school teacher, she has 2 master's degrees, halfway through a PhD. She has a superintendent's license, and she's the principal of the highest performing elementary school in Lorain County. I mean, this is an educator's educator, and you get her in a room. As a matter of fact, invite her down, I'll put her on your show. Okay. But most importantly, we're in crisis in education, and are you aware that there's 25 members of the governor's cabinet, and not one of them speaks to the education of our children, K through 12? You've got the director of the Ohio Youth Commission, who incarcerates our kids. is on the governor's cabinet, but the people who educate our kids are not. So Chantel and I have said enough of that. We will have an education czar on the governor's cabinet, and we're going to find out why it is that the illegal funding of education in Ohio has been going on in defiance of a court order for 20 years. This is just wrong. I come, as you just mentioned, I come from Chagrin Falls, Ohio. It is a nice community. I pay ungodly property taxes, but I'm willing to do that because we have a world-class school system. Now, but other people in the inner cities don't have my advantage. There is not equality in education in Ohio, and that's wrong.
Okay. Well, is there anything else you'd like to express on or talk about before leaving my show today?
No, it's been fun so far.
I don't usually ask. It's not a grueling session. I'm not.
And I've been through a few of those.
Yeah, my job is just to give some information, educate the public as to the candidates that are out there, and let them make their own decision about where that's a candidate they want to support.
Well, now you got my interest up. Who have you spoken to so far?
Not many.
Wow, okay.
It's kind of surprising. You know, there's been a magistrate that came in. The congressional candidate. I've talked to people that were running for county commissioner, things like that, but it's surprising how few people have taken up on the opportunity to come in on a free show to converse with, Western Stark County, and if not more. So I'm glad you did.
When I win the primary, I'm coming back.
All right. Well, I'm welcoming you back when you win the primary, because I hope you have great success. Thank you for coming in, Bill O'Neill, former Justice of the Ohio Supreme Court, also a Court of Appeals judge, and a practicing lawyer for many years, a registered nurse, who's
Assistant Attorney General.
An Assistant Attorney General.
12 years in the Civil Rights Commission.
So